The Batman is a great movie, given that it is about to come out or may already have been released by the time you see this. I'm sure the hot takes are about to be flying, but given that we do look into Batman at his formative years and kind of learn about what makes him tick and how much he screws up, this is a very different version of The Dark Knight that we're used to seeing on the big screen. That also means it's absolutely bizarre. Why? Here's why. The very first thing that struck me as the Batman gets going is how it does indeed separate itself from different movies. Like 9 times out of 10 when you sit down to watch a Batman film, out he comes all guns a-blazing in the first act and it's truly excellent. But here, things are far more subdued, and really the first time we do see the Caped Crusader, he is narrating over some footage because he's reading from his journal. And this isn't really something you could envision a Christian Bale or Michael Keaton doing, mostly because Robert Pattinson's version does come across as a little bit sullen. Like, he's not totally happy that he has become the Batman, and of course he's still really, really sad about the death of his parents. It's almost like Bruce Wayne has been pushed down this path, but now he's had time to think about it. Well, he's not 100% on board. It's also pretty damn morose, which almost sums up Bruce. He hasn't found his place in the world, and he is struggling, which does make him a little bit of a dick. Take his relationship with Alfred, for example. Like some kind of spoiled teen, he is more than happy to tell Mr. Pennyworth, "Oh, you're not my dad, you don't understand," even when he is lying in hospital and potentially dead. I mean, thankfully he is okay, but Wayne still uses this time to accuse Alfred of lying to him about the death of Mum and Dad, and even though it turns out that Alfred had been telling the truth, it goes to show where Bruce Wayne's priorities are, and that yes, he's a little bit selfish. Now, all of this is used, of course, to develop the character over the next 175 minutes. Like, by the time we do get to the end of the movie, he understands he needs to protect Alfred, otherwise he's going to have no family left, and that he can't just be vengeance that Gotham needs, he needs to be a symbol of hope, otherwise the city is never going to go back to the prominence that it once had. So he understands that's his burden and that's his sacrifice, and it's a lot to go through in just one movie. When that all comes together too, those narration scenes that we've talked about stand out even more, because you're like, oh my gosh, they've structured it like a graphic novel, which once again separates it from other Batman films that we've seen. So I was desperate to see the first hour after I'd seen the subsequent 2, because it uses its last 2 acts to justify the first. And that is once again quite a risky thing to do, especially if you're only a casual Batman fan. I can only imagine that you'll sit there and you'll be scratching your head going, what the flub is going on? I mean, you may even start asking yourself, why is Bruce Wayne such a child? But that's the whole point. He is a child. He's never really grown up because of the tragedy that he suffered, and as is made perfectly clear, he's also probably struggling with some mental health issues. Now, the comics have definitely dealt with this here and there, but when it comes to the films, it's been minimal at best. And actually, when you do go through the major ones, I suppose Batman Forever, did it best, so to speak, because at least there Bruce Wayne had a therapist, but man, we all know how that turns out. So it's totally different here, because not only do you see it structure Bruce's decisions, I mean, he has absolutely zero regard for his own life, but then you also find out that Martha Wayne, his mother, had spent time at Arkham Asylum because she was going through this kind of stuff too. So within seconds, Matt Reeves has layered this up so much, even more so when we learn about Thomas Wayne and his potential corruption. But for a decent chunk of time of the Batman, it is teased that Thomas Wayne sought out the help of Carmine Falcone because he wanted to silence a reporter so all his family's personal life wouldn't be splashed all over the news when he was indeed running for office. Surprise, surprise, the leverage Falcone uses is to just kill that guy. Thomas can't handle it because he never thought that was going to happen. He goes to the police, and on this fateful night is when the Waynes are murdered. So there is a big wink wink nudge nudge that Carmine Falcone was probably responsible for this, but also look at what it creates. We've already mentioned how Bruce Wayne isn't exactly the stand-up citizen that he's sometimes presented as, but neither is his mum and dad. And seriously, if you go through any of the Batman movies, they are treated like saints, but here they ain't. It's also cool because the Batman never actually clarifies this. I mean, all the hints are pointing in that direction, but even Alfred says to Bruce Wayne, look, if you're asking my opinion, do I think that's accurate? Yes, but have I ever been able to find some evidence? The answer is no, so it's ambiguous, it's open, you can come to your own interpretation. There's a very adult take on the franchise, even though it has this juvenile centre, which also makes it a bit weird. And then you get to the Riddler. Part Joker, part Hush if you want to get super basic with it. This also has to be one of the most flubbed up representations of any Batman villain that we have seen to date. I mean, the first scene of the whole thing is this guy killing the mayor of Gotham with a carpeting tool. And while we have removed any ultra-violence in order to get the rating, be it the atmosphere, be it the music, be it the way he looks, this will make you feel all heebie-jeebie because it's clearly screwed up. The scene towards the end after the Riddler gets locked up in Arkham Asylum where he's clearly talking to the Joker is going to get people talking. But do not forget about this. At the end of the Batman, the Riddler is still alive. We seem to have introduced the Joker and the Penguin has taken over the mob in Gotham, meaning when you get to the sequel, you could have 3 villains running around for Batman to try and stop. And look, when we did it with Batman Returns, it was kind of a success, but also kind of risky. And now I think we're about to do it again. And we do seem to be getting this Penguin spin-off series, so maybe a huge heap of story could be told there. But you can't sack him off in the movie because he plays way too big of a part. It's also the same when it comes to Catwoman because she doesn't actually leave the franchise either. Even though she does depart Gotham because she wants to head to Bloodhaven, it is made abundantly clear that at some point Batman is probably going to need her help. So it does beg the question whether we're going to add Selina into this as well. And never forget, as you already know, she's never going to follow the Batman verbatim. Even in the Batman, she kind of helps him out, but the whole time is going, listen here, Bruce Wayne, even though she doesn't know it's Bruce Wayne, I don't really like the way you do things, so I'm just going to do things my own way. So you're just left with a bunch of information to unravel as the end credits do roll. And of course, Gotham is in a worse start at the end than it is to the beginning, which means you can't muck around with it. Batman failed. I mean, he totally believes he can make things right and then the damn city is flooded when you're leaving the theater. This feels like it's meant to run alongside Batman's own evolution though, because while he's in a better place by the time you get to the end, Gotham absolutely isn't. So it means that Bruce is going to have to take his new understanding of this role and pull this place out of a darker pit than maybe even he imagined. So if you're walking into this going, oh man, this is going to make me feel so happy and full of joy, well, you have picked the wrong movie to see. I mean, it's pretty damn grim. There are other bits that tie into this bizarreness too. In the sense, you only get the Batmobile for about 10 minutes, which is a kind of controversial decision, but also that we've gone back to the comics and the entirety of the GCPD basically hates Batman. And they act like this every time he's around, and of course it's only Jim Gordon that stops him going to jail. And so many times I've watched a Batman movie, I'm like, man, we haven't got that relationship right, but here we have smashed it out of the park. So I suppose a lot of this oddness does come from the fact that we've taken multiple decisions but still made this work. I mean, ever since Christopher Nolan went, no man, Batman needs to be gritty, you can't get away from that too much. However, Matt Reeves has figured out a way to present that in his own light. That's the reason why I'm a big fan of all of this. It's certainly a film that demands repeat viewings to break all of this down, but shouldn't that always be the way when it comes to Batman? Because as a character, he's so damn complex. You always have the argument, oh man, he's just a rich guy in a suit. But even if you are one of those naysayers, you could not sit down to watch the Batman and actually use it as an excuse because it goes out of his way to say, no, he's not. He is a really screwed up person. So it's a unique take, no doubt, but also one that takes bits and bobs from the movies, the films, and the graphic novels in order to hit all the beats that you want it to hit, while also feeling like nothing you've ever seen in your life. And that one sentence alone proves why the Batman could be the most bizarre Batman film ever. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about the Batman movie. Did you like it? Maybe you hate it. We want to know. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to whatculture.com where you can read articles about the Batman. Do the same with our YouTube channel. We've got loads of content, and come say hey on social media so we can say hey back. My name is Simon What Culture. Thank you for joining me as always, and given that it is out soon, I'm gonna go watch the Batman.